Hello, hello. Welcome to Revelator Alpha for another live show, a bit of an impromptu show again. So today is all about the good, the bad, the ugly. Yes, you can just hear Clint Eastwood, just rattling his spurs right now, can't you? Yeah, we're talking about Harley Davidson. We're talking about the design features, some of the great things, some of the not so good things, let's say, the bad things, and some of the things that are just plain ugly. So that's pretty much what we're going to be talking about now. I put out a little uh, request out to you guys out there a couple of days ago. Oh, excuse me, I'm sneezing. Crikey, where did that come from? And just to ask, what your thoughts are on the little traits of the Harley Davidson. I got loads of emails, loads of messages on the subject as well. So it's, I suppose, it's quite a popular thing to discuss, isn't it? I mean, there's always going to be some great features and always some bad features. But first of all, before I would do that, I just want to again, thanks everybody for tuning into these live shows. Thanks everybody for watching the videos as well, getting onto the channel and also to the website, and any feedback that you give as well. It's always good. Obviously, I always take on board what people say, and some people just make constructive and really good comments, and offer ways to improve, which is always great, always welcome. But obviously, there are other people there who would just like to have an attack. So we kind of ignore those, and we just, But if you've ever got a comment, about any of the videos that I make or the subjects that I cover on the channel to do with motorcycles or motorcycle cultures, let's say, or subcultures, or Harley Davidson in particular, let's say, then just leave your comments. There's no problem at all. I never say to people you have to agree with me, but certainly, you can offer a solution or offer a counter argument, which is great. But it's always the same, isn't it? It's always how you approach these things and how you word things. That's always going to be the things that will engage in a discussion. Because if people just hurl abuse or hurl insults, then it's just it's not constructive, is it? It's not going to help anybody. Kajaga, hello, how are you? I'll get onto that little subject in a moment, but anyway, so again, thanks for all the comments. Thanks for all the great comments. Still some really funny ones out there as well. I really appreciate those. And one of my great first loves is comedy, stand-up comedy. Not that I do it myself, but watching it and listening to it. So I always find things that are funny really, really funny, if you know what I mean. Anyway, but so we're going to be talking more on that and covering a few issues that have been raised in this last week as well. But as I say, thanks again. Thanks for all the comments. Thanks for all the engagement. Thanks for all the support for the channel and the website and on the social media. Really appreciate that. As I say, you can help support the channel by leaving some super chats or some super stickers at the bottom of your where you type in your comments and your chat. After the live stream is over, then below the video you'll see there's a thanks logo. You can add there as well, or you can go to the website. And the reason why I keep on mentioning this is now because behind the scenes, as it were, there are lots of projects going on. But one of the projects I've actually just started a new page on the website, a projects page, and it's kind of going to give you an insight of what I'm thinking about or what's coming up, let's say, or what I really want to plan for the website. So there are a few things going on there. I haven't put everything on there, and it is quite sparse there right now. It's literally, I've just kind of give links to this project build here. I've got another project build, which I'm actually picking up or today. That'll be there, so that'll just come out in new content as well for the future. But there's also some other projects which I have long term, and I'm trying to source right now, and that may even turn into a giveaway bike. I'm not really sure yet, but we'll see how that goes. But there's also plans or desires again for a studio, a proper studio workshop, yes, but studio more, and a hangout place and a meetup place for people to come and see, meet up on designated times as well. So that's all what this kind of crowdfunding shout outs are for, really. So if you can support the channel in any way, and the website, that's really much appreciated. Anyway, right, on to today's video or live stream, I should say. It's talking about Harley Davidsons, right? Harley Davidson in particular, but you can, if you're not a Harley Davidson rider and you're watching this and you ride another bike, let us know. The same applies, okay? The good, the bad, the ugly of your particular bike or your particular brand, okay? Because I can look at any other bike and I can say, I love that feature, or what, don't like that, or what the hell is that? So we can do that for any bike, right? But I kind of wonder about Harley Davidsons in particular, because I ride one, and over the last sort of 2 or 3 years, I've been really digging into that bike, and that's why I was making all the content about it. So, you know, here, Kajaga, hello. Harleys are still a mix of metric and Imperial nuts and bolts. This is one of those things that you always scratch your head about. And you look at the designers and you think, what are they thinking? Why have they decided, especially for an American brand, let's say an American brand, that isn't really traditionally a metric society, okay? It's an imperial society in terms of engineering, right? I mean, I think that's right. I think that's the case. So why have they produced bikes with metric and imperial sizings on? I just never quite understood that. I mean, that's just a weird thing, isn't it? Hello, Camilo. Hello. How are you? Thank you for joining. King Cracker. Hello. How are you? Ed, you're there again. Hello. Good morning to you. James, hi from north of the border. Alf. Hello. Bonnie, Scotland. Hello, sir. How are you? And Roking, 302 Roking. Love that. Hi there. Yeah, you're coming from a KTM. I had a KTM video this morning as well. And you just covered that in your video. Totally agree. Looking at the Lowrider S now. Yeah, Lowrider S is a great bike. I want to discuss the power, the compression ratios in another video or another live stream about that. Because I have my thoughts on this, and I have my thoughts on, doing upstaging and that kind of thing. And I always talk about, especially with Harley Davidson, because we tend to upstage and add performance parts. But I always question what the performance gain is in total. Okay, so where are you actually getting the performance gain, and what you're spending your money on? Is it really a performance, or are you kind of just getting a better feel rather than proper performance? And I know lots of people are going to have their say on that. Stephen, hello, how are you? Ed, I hate to use the use of Torx heads and Allen heads. Do you know what? I prefer the Torx than to the Allens, because the Allens, again, sometimes you got Imperial and metric Allens as well. And again, there's a mix of that. There is a mix of that on the sorry, I'll just turn the sound off that. There's a mix of that on the bikes, isn't there? So you kind of question this, and I hear this all the time because I know it all the time. You know, I know it and I see it, and every time I'm working on my bike or tinker my bike, I thought, why have they got a metric here? Why? So you need two sets of tools, and it just it's just crazy, isn't it? We know all this. I mean, you know, I think one of the first videos that I ever made about the Sport Glide was what spanners you should have in your tool bag, you know, or your toolbox if you're going to carry them with you. And that's the thing, where you need this one, you need this one. And I think I said, you know what, just take an adjustable spanner, because that's probably the best way, because you need a metric for this or an Imperial for this one. And you think, okay, well, maybe could you get away with that one? And it's just, you know, a 3/8 instead of a, 10 mil or something like that. You know, it's just, but it's weird. I mean, Stephen, you know, you don't like the Torx, but you like the Allens. You see, again, it all comes down to individual taste, doesn't it? It all comes down to what you think is right for your bike, or what is right for, Harley Davidson, or I don't know, BMW. You know, you got Japanese bikes, then yes, we tend to use a metric on there, but they use what's the Japanese system? Please help me out, somebody. It's just completely gone. Is it called JS? Is it the JS sizes? Anyway, so they got their own. It's very similar to metric, but it's different. You know, if you go back in the day to UK, then we have different bolts. We had Whitworth bolts as well. So you had Whitworth spanners and things like that. So, you know, throughout the time, long period of time, you're always going to have different sizings and different variations, and you kind of wonder why have we got all this, especially now. Why don't you just use one size? Now if it's an American brand, Harley Davidson, right, just have Imperial, just have one size. If and they always talk about American and metric bikes and all that kind of stuff. Why don't you just have one size and be done with it? And I agree, the torque spots, and I kind of wonder, why have torque spots there? Why? I just don't understand why you would need torque spots. Why don't you just have Allens? Or why not have all torques instead of Allens? Or why not, you could ask the same questions over and over again. Why? Ed, the HD 8 into 1 screwdriver is nice with different Torx heads, but you have to carry both metric and standard Allens. Let me ask anybody this, because I haven't looked at this. This is a genuine question here. Do Harley Davidson sell a tool kit with both Imperial and metric that could be fitted on your bike? In other words, for the soft tails, for example, do they sell a kit, a little small traveling tool kit, let's say, that has got both Imperial and metric? I'm pretty sure they don't. I think they sell toolkits, but I don't think they sell specific ones that you can, that you could, put on your bike. I'm not 100% sure on that, because they don't provide you with a toolkit, do they, with the Harley Davidson? In fact, do you know what? I don't think many motorcycle brands do these days. They used to. Well, actually, I'm not sure if I'm right there. I think maybe Triumph do, and a few others do. Let us know in the comments. Let us know in the chat there. If you've got another branded bike and it's a new bike, let's say, did it come with a toolkit? One of the small, it's in a plastic pouch, that kind of thing. My old Triumph, my Triumph Explorer definitely did. It had its own toolkit. The Triumph Speedmaster in itself, it had a little Allen key inside the side cover, and I can't remember what that was for, but it didn't have a specific toolkit. I think some bikes will, some bikes won't. Yeah, okay, Ed, here we go. Yeah, the Softails definitely know. I know the Harleys don't. I'm not sure about the Taurus, actually. The Taurus have their little toolkit. I genuinely do not know. Ducati and BMW do. Yeah, I think other manufacturers do, but I know for sure that many of the complaints of many other riders from many other brands, they're saying, where's the toolkit? Now, it doesn't mean that many people would ever use those toolkits, right? Okay, let's be honest about it. However, just having it there you go. I wish Harley Davidson would just use one type on the bikes. Yeah, and I just wish they had a toolkit. They provided you with a toolkit that you could at least do some kind of road repair, even if it was an optional extra. You could say, right, okay, what are the major things that you need to have if you're on the side of the road, you're broken? Maybe a couple of a T handle with Torx heads, Allen heads, the 2 or 3 different size spanners, maybe a spanner for the wheel, the rear wheel, maybe a socket head for the front wheel, that kind of those kinds of things that you could think, right, okay, just if something came loose, I could quickly tighten it up, or I'd have a bit of a go, that kind of thing. Maybe incorporate, depending on which Harley you've got, especially if you've got tubeless tires, incorporate a tire puncture kit in there. A Harley Davidson, if you're listening, if you're watching, do that. Sell a Softail and a Tourer and now a Revolution Max, whether it's for a Sportster or a Nightster or for a Pan America, especially in Pan America. Let us know, actually. Let us know if the Pan America has got a toolkit. But if it has, for your range of bikes, produce a purpose toolkit. Now, if you charge 20 or 30 pounds for it, 40 pounds, well, so be it. Somebody's going to buy it as well. And I'm sure we could replicate our own, right? And, YouTubers, they love to say, look, you need this tool. And I've done it myself, to say, here are all the tools you'll need for your bike. Okay. Make your own little pouch, and this is what you can do. But if they already supplied it, that would be great, wouldn't it? Wouldn't that be great to for them to acknowledge and say, this is a tool kit that you need. Or do you know what, if they just included it with the bike in the first place? There we go. Yes, metric OSAE. What is the Japanese version? It's JS. You got to help me out here. What is it? Hold on. Let me just do a quick Google search here, see if I can remember. Japanese spanner set. Let's have a look. What does that say? Kaiko make KTC has made KTC. No. IP. I can't find it. What is it? Japan from Japan? No, this is just Japan. Anybody know what it is? Oh, crikey. It's got to be. I'm sure it's JS spanner sizes. Let's have a look. It is. I'm googling here what it is. Not metric. JIS. There we go. Thank you very much. JIS, which is a Japanese. Let me just share this screen for you so you'll know what I'm reading here. There we go. Right. It is. Is that on there? Yeah, you can see there. Let me just give you the full screen. There we go. JIS. This one here, which is. Has that gone? There we go. JIS Japanese industrial standards for hexagon for wrenches. Now, I don't know if it's actually a different size. Let me just come back to that. I don't know if that's a different size in particular. I haven't got a set, so I don't know. I've always wanted to get a set, but I don't know if it's a different size or it's just to a different tolerance or a different standard. I don't know. Stephen, I would buy a toolkit from Harley if it was extra and was good quality tools. Yeah, I think most people would. In all fairness, I think most people would. Now, again, I do know they sell little travel toolkits. I just don't know if those toolkits are specific to a tourer or to a Softail or to a Pan America. I actually don't know. Have a 2021 114 Street Bob. Very, very nice. Love the bike, but just trying to get the battery. If you break down, you would need a major toolkit in itself. I tell you what, again, great. Thanks very much, Alan, for bringing this up. This is another thing that infuriates people who ride Softails, in that the position of the battery. Now, this is not just a Harley Davidson thing, I've got to say, because there are many other motorcycles out there that have very odd locations for their batteries, and ones that is not readily accessible, or the terminals are not readily accessible or easily accessible, I should say. And this is just a weird one, isn't it? It's one of those components on a bike or on a car that really should be immediate access. Okay, so if you need to change a battery, charge a battery, if you need to jump start the battery, okay, add a power pack to it. Well, basically with the Softails, you can't do that unless you put a connector, a charging cable to it, and you have it so it's easy access. So that's why they got the trickle chargers on the new bikes, or the newer bikes, let's say. They always have that with it, and it's, you know, standard set, because you can't access the battery, so you just have that already there. It's the same with you know, jump starting. Now, I think on a live show a couple of weeks ago, I can't remember it is, so I do apologize, I've totally forgotten your name, but basically you sent me a message saying, well, you know, you've got this, if you watch one of the previous live shows, basically he got this jump start battery pack, power pack, and he'd had to get a specific cable to already, you know, have it mounted to the terminals, and it's exactly the same kind of cable, let's say, that you'd have your trickle charger, but this is a separate cable just for a jump start pack, you know, and you carry this jump start. So again, it's you understand that that's the design, but surely they've got to look at that. Surely somebody somewhere in the designers are going to be saying, right, here's our finished project. Aren't we fantastic? We just made this lovely Softail, which I've always said the Softails I think are fantastic design of a bike, right? Love them, absolutely love them. I bought one, right? I love it. I actually love them. But that shock going over the battery, and you can't access it. And if the battery was raised up a little bit, that you could access it from the top, easily, the terminals. Okay, all right, yeah, I get it. But because it's just a little bit too far down, and then you have to start taking off. You have to carry tools to take off the side panels to even have a chance. So this is where it's a bad design. Now, to remove the battery, remember when the Softails first came out, somebody came out on a video and said, "Oh, well, how bad the design is." And I think I've made a video and other people have made videos as well. I said, no, it's not. It's a 20-minute job, a 10, 15-minute job. You just take off the right-hand side panel, undo a couple of screws, undo this, undo that, and the battery comes out the side. But it's still, it's still not a good design for battery access, I would say. There we go. Do Harley engines really need upgrading, or is it just a gimmick? Well, it's a really good question. It's a really good question. I would say, again, it comes down to personal preference, and it comes down to what you actually want at your bike and what you really want. Most people would say and agree that the engines are dulled down. They are to meet emission standards, to meet, whatever. But that's all motorcycles, right? That's all motorcycles all over the world. And to open them up a little bit, is just to add them. Now, I would say that you can achieve a lot more. You can achieve similar kinds of performance gains, or performance feel, I should say, by not spending hardly anything at all. And I've made sort of videos about this in the past as well. So there are ways to improve performance. But again, I think that it is a bit of a misplaced expense on Harley Davidsons, in particular when we're talking about performance gains, because they're not performance motorcycles. So I think the M8s are plenty good enough. If you compare them like for like from stock bikes, let's say I'm talking about here, purely stock bikes, stock M8 to a stock twin cam or a stock Evo, it's light and day. Yes, you might not like the M8 in terms of the way it rides, but in terms of power and rideability and performance and handling, especially on the Softails, it's night and day. You can't really compare the two. So there's enough power there. Now, if you want to open it up a little bit, just make it feel a little bit more snappy, yeah, absolutely. I mean, add it. But again, it's going to cost you thousands to do it. So, you got to ask yourself, is it the right thing to do? And this is where we come down to marketing, but we also come down to the design of the bike as well. And you say, well, actually, Mr. Harley Davidson designer, why don't you just sell us a bike that it's right out of the gate, doesn't need any work done to it? It is a lot of power. And with this 117 that they brought out with a low rider S, for example, well, that's one of those bikes. I think I don't need to do anything with it, just leave it. And when they bought the low rider S out 2 or 3 years ago, whenever it was, I was one of the first ones who said, why the hell have you brought out this signature Softail, this lowrider S, in a 114? Why haven't you brought it out in a 117? Well, they obviously listened to me, obviously. They obviously listened to me to say, well, actually, you're right, because it should be a 117. It should be that little bit more. You've got the best M8 platform in the Softail in terms of weight, I'm talking about, and you've got the best Harley Davidson stock engine, the 117. You've got the best power to weight ratio there. It seems logical, right? That's when you've got that low rider S. That's your performance bike in the Softail range, 117. But if you want to start adding more to that, you want to start increasing it to, whatever, 124, 128, 131. People are doing this all the time. They're always looking to improve and go bigger and more and spend thousands and thousands, and get into it, right? It's a huge question. It's a huge expense, and it's a huge question. I always say, how often are you going to use that power? And, so I could be riding my stock or my stage 1, right? stock stage one, pretty much the same, really. 107. Well, you're not going to outride me, or you're not going to outride me, everyday riding. Yeah, you might, pull away at the lights a little bit, and you might, just go. But let's face it, how fast are you going to go? How fast are you going to go before you get pinched by the police, or you lose control, or whatever? And then you improve the performance of the bike, the engine performance output. But most people then start to realize, well, actually, because I've increased the power or the power delivery of this engine, now I've really got to look at the suspension. Now I've got to look at the brakes. Now I've got to look at all the other things on the bike that actually, you've kind of put the bike out of balance again. And this is why I always talk about a bike that's in balance. Okay, you might not particularly like it in terms of a stock bike, but it's in balance. And the reason why they produce a bike or design a bike in a certain way is, yes, to meet emission standards, but yes, is to meet certain tolerances of the components that they've put in. So let's just say that you say to, right, okay, I want to increase the compression ratio on this bike. I want to increase the bore size of this, the screen, whatever it is. You want to take it from a 107. You want to take it up to a 128 or whatever, 124. Or I don't like the 107. I much prefer the 114, whatever. So you're going to start making changes. You start making changes to that bike. You're spending thousands. But by increasing a certain aspect, you're gonna put something else under strain that may not be designed for that. And it could be, I don't know, it could be your crankshaft, it could be anything. It could be your pistons, your piston rods. It could be anything. It could be the clutch, it could be the compensator. Whatever it is, you start changing your bike and changing the bike that it was never meant to be, or the components on that bike was never meant to meet this enhanced performance, and then you've put your bike out of balance. And I suppose this is one of the big frustrations from Harley Davidson, to say, look, or us who ride Harley Davidson, say, look, you've produced a bike that needs tinkering with, or that that we're going to love tinkering with it. But the reality is that we're kind of unbalancing the bike again, and we're constantly chasing our tail. So you're right. Do they really need upgrading? I would say no, but it depends subjectively. Is it purely objectively? I would say no, but subjectively, I would say, well, yes, because you would feel in yourself that it needs to. But do you really need it, or do you just want to match what somebody else has done, or whatever? And how often are you going to use all that performance? And how much are you affecting reliability? There's an old adage that as soon as you start messing with a stock engine, then the reliability goes down. And the reason is reliability goes down, one, as I say, because you've put the bike out of balance now in terms of not only the engine components, but everything else on the bike. But also what you've done is that you've introduced the potential for people to be working on your bike that are not doing things correctly. And then all of a sudden they start making errors left, right, and center. And that's why. And also, sorry, there's a third thing, that you start riding your bike in a manner that is beyond what it was originally designed for. So you're going to put it under more and more stress. Ta-da! There we go. Morris Casey, crosshead screws, JIS. Yes, that's right. Alan, you're exactly correct. Yeah, absolutely. It's just right. Jump starting the bike is, well, it's bollocks. You're absolutely right. It is bollocks, because you wonder what the hell were they thinking there. There are ways of doing it, but it's not just an easy thing. I think Harley Davidson, yeah, they do sell a jump pack, a jump start pack, but it doesn't work. It doesn't work on the soft touch. You can't do it. You can't be on the side of the road and call your breakdown service, here in the UK, it's the AA or the RSC or whatever it is, and then also, yeah, jump start it. Well, how are you going to jump start it then? Oh, you need long probes to go in there, and oh no, make sure you don't touch the frame and all that. It's just not right. So there are many things that, if you look at the Harley Davidsons, but any bike, The question, the design. Now, I'm not talking about design in terms of what you think is pleasing to the eye, because people look at my bike and they think, oh, I hate those wheels, or oh, I hate that seat, or hell, I hate the look of it, the fairing, oh, I hate the fairing, where others absolutely love it. I just happen to be one of those people that I love it. I actually like the look of the stock bike. In fact, I like it so much. I've been very careful to not to change it too much from its stock appearance, and the performance upgrades that I've done so far, and I would do in the future, would be not, they would be all internal rather than actually making it appear different as well. But again, other people are different. Other people are different as well. Let me just stop sharing that page there. Yeah, but other people are different completely. They will have a different view on that. So I'm not talking about what people look about aesthetically is different. I'm talking about design features that you think, oh, crikey. I mean, another thing as well, is seating. Is seating, right? So we look at the seats, Harley Davidson seats. This is, and you think, well, why aren't they better? Why aren't they better? Why is it that so many people want to change their seat to an aftermarket seat? So this is not a shot across the bow again for Harley Davidson. This is not a criticism per se. But why is it one of the first things you want to do is change from the stock seat? Okay, then why is it that Harley Davidson, some of the Harley Davidson seats, I'm not going to say all of them, they don't fit properly. Sundowner seats, for example, on the Softails, the ones that I've seen, the ones that I've got, they don't fit properly. They don't fit, but there's always a gap around the tank. Why is that? Why have you got something that doesn't quite work? People talk about the paint being, weak, it's, whatever, it's too easily scratched and all that kind of stuff. I mean, as I say, so again, lots of people want to change their bikes and make it their own. Yes, absolutely right. And that's part of the fun of it, isn't it? That's part of the fun of having your own bike, and you say, oh, well, that's Dave's bike going down the road, or that's Jim's bike, that's Sophie's bike going down the road, because you want to try and make it yourself, apart from, most people end up buying a black bike, don't they? Or a black Tourer, or a black road glide, or a street glide, or whatever. But that's by the by. But you think that you want to make it your own. You think you want to, have something that is uniquely yours. But then you want to start, then you start looking at it and you think, well, actually, could I get away with a stock seat? No, stock seat's not good enough. Okay, so you try and put a new seat on. Oh, maybe it fits, maybe it doesn't fit properly. It's not the look that you want. So each time, this is, again, one of the ugly things of Harley Davidson. If we're going to say the good, the bad, the ugly, one of the ugly things is that you're going to spend X amount above what you want just to improve the bike to what your particular needs are. And you always question, well, why isn't that bike sold to meet your needs in the first place? Why is there? Now, you could argue everybody is different, right? So the scenario is, let's say, especially if you're going to buy a Harley Davidson seat, right? So why not sell the bike with the seat that you want and that you're comfortable with right at the start for the same money? Okay, I know it's not a great business model for Harley Davidson, because guess what? Hey, they want your money, right? But that would offset a little bit. Look at the let's look at the paint that people always complain about on. Well, I suppose they've always complained about that on Harley Davidsons, right? And I think the damage that has been done to my bike, the paint, that is, it's all been self-inflicted. It's me. I'm not going to blame Harley Davidson for it. But in other areas, I think, crap, that was a bit weak. That was a bit, that scratched a bit too easy, or that rubbed, that smeared a bit too, a bit too much. But there we go. Let us know about the problems with the paint. Anything else on the Softails and the Tourers that you think? Personally, I think with the Tourers, I've tried a couple of the Tourers, and I still want to try more, and I want to try the Indians as well with the big infotainment systems. But I do wonder what's the point. I mean, I've been riding around quite a lot with my little in-ear headphones recently, my AirPods, And I got to say, I'm in a world of my own. I've got my AC/DC blaring out, Guns N' Roses blaring out. Yesterday, I was listening to The Doors, and it was just great. But it's all in my ear, and there's no sound around. It's perfect sound, let's say. I just don't get the whole infotainment system thing. And for some people, they live and breathe by it. It's got to be. And I wonder, is this a ride? You're really thinking that you're getting a great sound when you're riding your bike along the road, 50, 60, 70 miles an hour? Or are you just kind of fooling yourself that you're kind of getting a really good sound? Or is it a case that it's not really when you're on the main road, the highway? It's actually when you're at slow speed, just riding around town, or maybe you've parked up and then you put the sound on. I don't know. I'm not 100% sure here. John, in terms of reliability, are Harley engine reliability the touring? Well, I would say they are. I would say Harley Davidson engines are reliable, and especially you got to look at the ones that are maintained and used appropriately. Again, it comes down to what you end up doing to your bike, how you start fiddling, tinkering with it, what additions you make to it. And also, it's just like anything, it's about looking at your bike and to see if there's an early indication of a problem. And that's where it comes down to. It seems strange that Harley don't have decent suspension that you have to upgrade. Okay, this is going to be my next point. But John, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right in that Softail, they came out with a Softail chassis, right? And the 2017, 2018, was it? 2017, 2018, right? And it was a great chassis because of the monoshock system. Okay, the monoshock, which they had the Softails before, they had the two shocks beneath the bike. And now they have this monoshock system, and anybody who's ridden monoshock bikes will know that actually they are balanced better. The bike is balanced in the turns. It makes it a better riding bike. So one of the reasons I went for the Sport Glide, the Softail on the Softail chassis, was because as soon as I rode it, it was because I like the style. I always like the appearance of Harley Davidson. Well, not all Harley Davidson, but I like the look of them, right? But I would never really cared for the way they rode, because I rode all sorts of other bikes, Japanese, British bikes, Italian bikes, German bikes, whatever, in the past. So they ride properly, in my opinion, right? They ride, especially where we are in the UK, all around Europe, lots of bends, right? Lots of twists and turns. Yes, we got long stretches, open roads, of course we have, but if you get off the big motorways, the big highways, yeah, it's all twists and turns. So we need bikes that do that. Harley Davidson, for me, was, you could do it, it's no problem. They just didn't have the same feel. Right. However, when they brought out the chassis, the Softail chassis with the monoshock suspension, all of a sudden it's like, yes, Harley Davidson, you've done it. You fixed it. You fixed the problem that people like me thought was a problem with your bike. We like the looks of it. We just didn't like the way they rode, and the brakes weren't that great. But now you've got brakes that work, and also you've got a chassis that enables us to ride in on the bends, and also you've got a decent engine there for that kind of cruising ride. Thanks very much. Or a fast cruising ride. Yeah, thanks very much. Brilliant. Love it. Then you look at the Taurus and you think, what the hell is going on there? And they still really haven't addressed it. They still haven't, upgraded that suspension or improved that suspension. Even the STs, you kind of think, it's not that great. So, again, this is another big thing. You think, well, why? What are the designers thinking? Why have they done this? Why have they not looked at that chassis, the touring chassis, and made those changes? And I've got videos coming about this, making suggestions or asking this as well. But then you look at it and you think, well, are they doing this on purpose? Is there a reason why they're not changing that touring chassis, the suspension on it? Why they haven't changed it? Is it because the touring chassis is going to be short-lived? They're not going to change it because they're not going to run it much longer. they're going to make changes elsewhere, or they are going to come out with a brand new chassis with a monoshock on it, let's say, or with, you know, high performance rear suspension and front suspension. Maybe that's it. Maybe that's it. I had a hard time at first when I got a BMW. I'm 5'7" on a good day, but the only things I did to the bike to come was lower the seat and bar riser, 1-inch bar risers. Yeah. Yeah. So I knew quite a few the BMW riders. They were riding the, and I can't remember what it was. It wasn't the GS. It was the I think it was the 850 as well, and they were riding those when they first came out. And yeah, a couple of those were the shorter riders, and they were struggling with seat height position. But then they had there was a special seat, I believe. There was a special seat that they had made, or an accessory was made soon afterwards, that it actually, it was on the lowest profile, but actually took the profile out of the seat a little bit more. And this is a BMW seat, by the way, and this is a factory option, or you could order it with an option. It'd either be standard seat at those settings, or you'd have it, I'm going to call it the extra low seat, right? And that gave it that extra, you know, that extra clearance for guys with shorter legs or ladies with shorter legs. There we go. DB, hello. This bugs me about some of the HDM models. Poor thin seats, front mud guards, too short allowing crud stones and the cooler grill, and the list goes on. Okay, yeah. This again, I look at this and I look at the Harley Davidson designers, and I think, where do you think you're trying to sell your bikes? Are you just trying to sell are you designing your bikes just to be sold in California, dry areas of California, Arizona, New Mexico, or wherever, you know, Dubai, you know, Spain, you know, these kinds of things? Or are we looking at a global market? Because surely, clearly, these bikes are not suited to anywhere else. They're not suited to it, because if you look at the front mud guards, the front fenders, they're just, in most cases, they are just too short or too narrow, you know, for the road. So as long as the road is dry and it hasn't got any debris on it, you're fine. You're laughing. There's no problem. But as soon as you've got any debris or any kind of wet conditions, guess what? You get covered. You absolutely get covered. Yeah, on a bike that isn't fed, or on a bike that hasn't got any leg covers or any leg guards or anything, you get absolutely covered, right? So then we, or, you know, from the, you know, the ownership, or we try and come up with fixes and solutions. We say, well, I have fender extenders and all that kind of stuff. So we, you know, get in touch with companies and say, yeah, make a fender extender. So they do. But again, it brings the fender down a little bit further down. But then you think it's still not big enough. You probably need a wraparound fender. So then you have custom bikes that have wraparound fenders, right? But then it's that, well, actually the spray is still coming out the side. You need more of a, you know, you end up almost having like an Indian fairing, which, you know, virtually encases the whole wheel. And you think, ooh, well, okay, that's not great, right? So what are you trying to do? You're trying to stop any water and debris being flicked up into the oil cooler on the Softails and the Taurus, right? Or on the Pan America, or the Softail, or the Nightstar on the radiator grill, which is way too big and it's way too low down, right? So you're trying to avoid that, okay? But it's still there. It's still there, and it's getting damaged all the time. It's getting damaged, getting debris on it all the time. So you think, well, okay, why is the voltage regulator there? You know, we could go on for hours and hours. You think, you know, it's, why is the voltage regulator there? I've kind of said this until I'm blue in my face. It's a stupid place to have a voltage regulator. You can't tell me, Harley Davidson, or anybody who rides a bike, that the voltage regulator needs to be there, down there. It doesn't need to be there. So, you know, you come up with other solutions like, you know, voltage regulator grills. I've just got a wire mesh over mine, purely and simply just to protect it. And you have to keep on washing it out, especially in the winter months. You have to keep on washing it out. So you kind of wonder, the designers, you know, are they looking at a bike that is fantastic in the dry conditions, dry roads, sunny roads, dry climates, but it's not so good in, you know, other conditions? And I think that's where I've come to the conclusion. They think these bikes are purely for that kind of environment. And those of us who ride these bikes in other kinds of weather conditions, we're left to our own devices, really. We kind of have to come up with solutions to make these bikes where we go. So when we talk, I can't remember who it was I think earlier on who was saying, you know, do you really have to start spending on performance upgrades, or is it a gimmick? I think where you need to spend your money if you're going to start improving your bike is tailoring the bike to how you ride, first of all. In other words, your riding style, but also your body dimensions in terms of, handlebar risers and all that sort of stuff, but also where you're riding as well. Okay, and the kind of conditions. So look at protection and enhancements for that. Air cleaner, right? You start doing an air cleaner change, you put a big exposed air cleaner on, air filter on. Well, guess what? That's going to be no good for where I ride. Not this time of year because it's fine, but in the dead of winter when I'm riding down the country lanes that are full of, mud and crap and everything like that, and it's all been sprayed, I literally get off my bike, seriously, and my legs all the way up to my arms are just covered in mud. Sometimes my bike is just plastered in mud, depending on which road I go on, right? And I look as if I've been sprayed over with a spray can full of mud. That's exactly what it looks like sometimes. There we go, Ed. I spent upwards of $1,800 to $2,500 on any Harley I bought. Yeah, the performance of the GS is second to none in my opinion. Yeah, I agree. That mono shock front end is phenomenal. Yes. Hold on, it's called the telelever, isn't it? The telelever suspension, yeah. And that's what makes the BMW front suspension so much better, in my opinion, than the Triumph front end suspension on the adventure bikes. Because when you apply braking of the Triumph, you've really got to modulate the rear brake a little bit more so that it doesn't dive. They tend to dive a lot more. However, with BMW brakes, BMW front suspension, it doesn't dive. There's an anti-dive, that kind of thing. And this is where you look at the suspension. I mean, I look at the suspension on my Softail. Whilst it's good, it's not the best. It's still stock, right? So you kind of think, well, should I change the front end, have Legends, or well, any other sort of suspension at the front, change the rear. And I think sometimes I'm riding along, I think, God, it just doesn't feel right. Sometimes it's too hard, too compact. But again, our roads are crap as well. There's always potholes. You're always trying to avoid big cracks in the road, or the tarmac or the asphalt is, broken up, or there literally are big holes in the road. So yeah, I mean, I think, if again, we know this for the, it's said time and time again, if you're going to buy a Tourer, one of the first things you need to do, if you're going to make any performance upgrade, first of all, is adjust or change the suspension. Spend a couple of thousand on that suspension, whether it's, whatever upgraded suspension you want to put on there. But that will say, and again, we look at these performance upgrades, your stage upgrades, and I always say, just be careful what you wish for, be careful what you're doing, and be careful and just really research what you think that you're going to get out of it. And this is not just Harley Davidson, this is for any motorcycle, any car. When you're talking about performance upgrade, upgrading the performance, upgrading the compression ratio, why are you changing it? What do you think you're going to get out of it? What performance? And if you're talking about race engines, for example, like a race engine, you think, right, okay, I know on my lap time, right, for example, my lap time is like 5/10 slower than the competition, right? So I've got to think, right, I need to get more power out of this. But also I could think, well, okay, let me analyze the way I'm riding. Let me analyze the tire degradation. Let me analyze the braking efficiency, because all these other factors can affect your lap times. It's not purely on engine performance, right? It could be suspension, brakes, whatever, way you're handling, or tires, the way you're riding, all that sort of stuff. But let's just say you've ruled out everything else. It's purely on that, right? So you say to yourself, okay, I've got to increase the compression ratio. Okay, so increasing compression ratio. The number one bad byproduct of compression ratio increase is, and I'll talk about this in another video, right, is increased heat. Well, if you increase heat and you've increased demand, you've basically put the bike, the engine, under more stress, right? So what does that mean for reliability? Well, that means that long-term reliability is going to be severely affected. However, in a performance, in a racing application, performance application, you might think, actually, we only need this engine for 30 laps, or we only need this for 2 races, depending on what kind of racing you're doing and what the legislation is on that. Therefore, long-term reliability isn't an issue. What we need is to increase the performance, so we make up those 5/10 on a lap, right? We increase the performance, and if the engine breaks after two races, it doesn't make a difference, because we need to replace the engine or strip it down and start again anyway. However, if we're making this performance increase and we're only lasting 10 laps before the engine blows, obviously we got something wrong. If you take that rationale and bring it all the way over to road bikes, right, anything that you do is going to affect the overall reliability, not necessarily on the component that you're putting in, because you might be upgrading the component, right, making it better. But again, you're offsetting the balance or upsetting the balance of that engine. So you're creating a stress that it probably wasn't really designed to have. So you're as a manufacturer, let's say, you're producing a bike that most people would perceive is not right, is not working right, it doesn't run right. In my opinion, my humble opinion, and what I've always thought, and I've kind of thinking it's quite right now, I've always thought that because their hands are tied, this is not a Harley Davidson problem, it's not their fault. And most people with a logical head would acknowledge that Harley Davidson in particular have had to meet emission standards. Okay, their hands have been tied somewhat because they've had to produce bikes that have been, compliant all over the world, let's say. And this is not just Harley Davidson, this is all manufacturers, right? But because of that, they've had to dull down the engine, but they've also made them run a little bit richer than they needed to be. So when you add a tuner and when you start adding performance parts, whatever, exhaust, cams, air filters, whatever, you want to try and refine those air fuel mixture ratios, those what they call the AFR tables, right, so that it doesn't run so rich, and obviously it doesn't run so lean, and you've got a little bit better, and you find that a much better datum for that. And once you found a much better datum for it, you're probably going to find that if you ride the bike conservatively, I should say, that your MPG is going to come up by 10-15%. And guess what? That's exactly what I found on my bike. By putting a tuner on it, yes, I put a Cobra exhaust, a slip-on exhaust, and I've got a K&N filter on it, air filter. Whilst they aren't dramatic performance changes, I was never that interested in performance. It was more about the sound, and also just about increasing or tuning the bike a little bit better. What I found is that the economy of it, the efficiency is a little bit better. So there we go. Right. So I'm going to dig into some of these. The trouble with practical fenders is that they look awful. Yes, you're right. And that's what, look, if we take a bike, a stock bike versus a custom bike, a chopper, right? Yeah. For me, custom bikes, chopper bikes, I love building them or making them or customizing. I love looking at bikes. But if you look at most of those bikes, you think that's not a practical bike for all year round riding, right? if you've got a bike that hasn't got a front fender, front mud guard, right? And you think, oh, that looks cool, or hard, old school hardtail chopper, right? Yeah, but it's the most impractical thing if you've got any kind of debris on the road, because you're constantly going to be hearing ding, 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 ding as bits fly up and hit your bike, right? So it's again, yeah, I take your point. They don't look great, but unfortunately, practicality is functionality the way it is. No doubt in my mind that the GS is one of the best bikes ever made. Yeah, I would agree. It is, and it's there's no doubt it has problems. They have problems, but there we go. But they're definitely not one of the best looking. Yeah, Mark, I'm not even gonna, because you've been making some silly comments recently, or not comments, but you know what? I will show it, because you're one of the ones who's been having a go recently. This is the crux of the discussion. Alf wants his cake and eat it too. No, I don't. No, you're making accusations. You don't even know what I'm talking about. HD is giving their new customers what they want. Really? Are you sure about that? Okay, well, because you ride a sports or a Pan America or whatever it is, you're one of the converted. You've just recently started riding Harley Davidsons. I don't know. Customers do not want practical fenders because they're ugly. Well, actually, I think you're judging all customers there, aren't you? You're not judging. You can't just speak for yourself, and you can't speak for what one or two people want. You got to look at what everybody wants. So hey, there we go. It's not just about what certain people want. It's about what other people want, or lots of people want. And if you wanted to make a bike that fits everybody, I don't think it's ever going to work, is it? But if you can provide options, that's even better. Ed, here we go. Dave, my buddy said my GS looked like a transformer. Do like in transformers, but I put a deception sticker on it, a Decepticon sticker. That Boxer is amazing. I got past the looks after riding it. Ducati V4 is definitely the best looking. There's some great bikes out there. It's great looking. No, I don't think ADV bikes in general are, they're not good looking bikes, are they? In terms of, design and flow and all that sort of stuff. However, they are good looking. They are great bikes in general. I mean, if you're looking at an overall tourer with some, basic off-road applications, that kind of thing, nothing too challenging and all that sort of stuff, because they are big and heavy and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, I think they are one of the best bikes. I am a fan of them. But I've always said, if you're going to get into serious off-road, like I was doing as well, whilst you can do it, it's just really hard work. It's really hard work. And then once you have to pick your bike up all the time and the damage that would inevitably come from it, great. There you go. Actually, they're too lean. What's too lean? What engines? Well, it depends. It depends which engine you're talking about, Dave. It really depends what you're talking about in stock. Actually, engines aren't always too lean. It depends on the engine. Depends which one you're talking about, and it depends what they set them out, and they usually set them out for emission standards. It really depends. But then it depends on what modifications then you make to that bike and how it affects the air fuel mixture. Okay, and this is what most people don't really get. Now, somebody made a comment or asked me a question the other day, or maybe in the live show, I can't remember. They said, what's the difference between putting a tuner on or taking your bike to a dyno to have it tuned there? Well, okay, one of the biggest things, there are lots of different reasons, right? But one of the biggest things is, or the only way I could describe it is just say that if you put a tuner on, you're buying a suit that fits you. Okay, if you take it and you kind of make little alterations as best you can, but it's very basic in how you're doing it. You're kind of relying on the suit makers to get you different suits, and you've got a rack of suits, and you say, well, I'll have that suit, or I'll have that suit, or I'll have that suit, right? And you make little slight modifications. However, you take it to a dyno, you're basically having a purpose tailor-made suit for you, well, for your bike, but also the way you ride and what you want to achieve in it in terms of economy, power. Where do you want the power? Where do you want the torque? Where do you want the horsepower? What RPM ranges and all that kind of stuff. So and that's where you can change, really fine tune that air fuel mixture in the RPM range as well, right? And whether it will go a bit on the richer side or the leaner side, or so on and so forth. It depends. It depends. There we go. So I'm just catching up here. It may be the difference between everyday use and maybe it's the difference between everyday use and weekend warriors. Well, look, I mean, again, you use the term weekend warriors. I mean, I think, look, let's just be right about this. Just because you ride your bike at the weekend doesn't mean that you don't put enough miles on it, or you don't ride it. I've never had an issue with people who don't ride on a daily basis. I remark that I ride on a daily basis all year round, but I'm just kind of stating a fact, not necessarily that I'm better than anybody else. But people who ride on the weekend, well, they may ride great distances. They may go on real long runs. They might have a job that they can't, ride during the week. So, people are that. But I take your point. What you're trying to say, in that, maybe they're just going out on a day like today, which is here in the UK. I don't know where you are in the chat, but here in the UK, here it's bright sunny day, blue skies and all that kind of stuff. And you think, well, okay, maybe they're just going out on those days. Great. That's fantastic, isn't it? If they're going out on those days, and that's where they find enjoyment. Look, and do you know what? I don't blame them for that. I actually don't blame them for that, because if I had the choice between going out on a nice sunny day, dry day, or a horrible, wet, bloody horrible day, especially with my bike that gets completely caked, I think, I'd definitely go out on the sunny day. You know what? And if I had two bikes in the garage, what I would have, regardless, irrespective of this one, in my front garage, let's say, I'd have my Harley and I'd have my adventure bike, let's say. I'd have those two bikes. So whether it's an Africa Twin Honda, whether it's a GS, whether it's a Triumph, KTM, whatever it is, because those sort of road riding bikes, as it were, right? I would have one, which is my Harley, would just be for nice riding days, and the other one would be my all-weather bike. Right, that would be my all-weather bike that I would go on if I was talking about my ideal. But my all-weather bike actually wouldn't be this small thing, because I need a bit more power for longer distances. I'd have like a 600, 700 cc, 800 cc, an older bike, what we call a winter hack type thing. All right, sorry, here we go. In my view, the GS is fantastic. Yes, it is a great bike. It is a great bike. I think that the GS is, and again, look, this comes down to the good, the bad, and the ugly when you talk about not ugly in terms of appearance, but not even a good or a bad in terms of its performance or its electronics. But then you kind of look at it and you think, does it need all this stuff? Now, I remember when I test rode a GS a few years ago, not recently, this is a few years ago. It was the first year that they had electronic suspension on it. And I think, it was the first year they had it, or was this? Yes. So I had side by side. I had one with new suspension, electronic, and one without. And then the Triumph was the first one that had just come out with its pure electronic suspension, which is really great. You sit on it and it just automatically goes, and it works out completely. However, at the back of my mind, I'm always thinking, and quite rightly, I'm thinking, right, if I'm somewhere in the middle of nowhere and I want to change the suspension, and I've had the bike for 3 or 4 or 5 years, let's say, and that electronic suspension, breaks down, then I'm stuck in one suspension. I can't change it. Whereas the older bikes, you just manual suspension. And I think BMW, they were the manufacturer that delayed the electronic suspension more than any others. But I think, I've got a feeling, I could be wrong. Let us know in the comments. Let us know in the chat if a lot of these ADV bikes, whether they're all electronic suspension now. I've got a feeling they are, but I'm not 100% sure. There we go. Right. I meant they make them too lean to meet regulations, not too Rich, yes, but yeah, look, I'm sure. I can't. I don't know if Harley Davidson are any more so than other manufacturers. Let's put it that way. I don't know if they're overly lean or leaner than other engines. I don't know. I think it just depends on the engine. But you could be, yeah. I mean, that kind of actually that makes sense. That does make sense. Yeah. Um, I'm David. I'm a weekend where I have no problem with it. You don't need the practicalities. Okay. Well, yeah, fine. Yeah, there we go. Wasn't it heated seats? Joel, don't know that. There we go. My GS is 2010 with okay with electronic suspension. It never had Mitsubishi. Maybe it was an even older bike. I mean, it can. Do you know what? It can't be over 10 years. It can't be. Crikey. I thought it had manual suspension before then. Well, there we go. I ride a bare bones 2020 Sportster, and I love it. I do like the Sportsters. I got to say, I do like them. You know, it's not about power; it's just about the look, and it's about the way they ride as well. Yeah, great. Look, and then what it comes down to, is what you like at the end of it, isn't it? What you like, what you want, what bike is right for you, and what you think. I mean, any bike that you get. Okay, I know we kind of talk about Harley Davidsons and BMWs, but any bike that you can get, you will get it at home, whether it's a new bike, whether it's a used bike, whatever. Like this one on here, this project build, whatever. I found so many things on it, and you think, not aside from all the issues, the problems that I had to fix. Okay, that's a separate issue. But I'm saying there's so many little design features on it, and you think, why have you done that? Well, that's a bit awkward to work on. Why have you? No, really, why isn't that easier access? Why have you put it that size bolt when it really should be? You probably be better doing it that size bolt. All these sorts of things. So any bike that you bring home, any bike that you start to tinker with, work on, you're going to find these things. You're going to find, okay, well, why is that? Why have they done that? Why have they? Why? And then you might look at it and you think, oh crikey, I wish they hadn't done that. Or then you start thinking in your mind, think, well, if they just done that, that would have been a lot better. Or so I'm no doubt this is not a Harley Davidson thing. This is every single motorcycle that you can ever think of. If you've owned it and if you start looking at it, working on it, think, why have they done that? Why have they should have done that better? Or you start picking faults in it because it doesn't fit in with the way you want to work on the bike or where you want to ride on it. And if you start picking faults on it and you can find a way to change it and upgrade it, this is where this is the criticism, let's say, of Harley Davidson in particular, because they've got to be the most modified motorcycle manufacturers out there. Their bikes are the most modified out there. So you think is, well, why do people feel the need that they need to modify the bikes? Well, they need to modify the bikes because they're trying to find the bike that suits their personality, their riding style, but what they think makes it a better bike. So the question is, why don't you just make the bike better in the first place? Or the reason why they don't make it better in the first place is because they want you to upgrade it. They want you to spend more money. The problem is that many people, especially if they're not that concerned about warranties and excluding the recent FTCs, or if they want to wait the 2 years when your bike's out of warranty, many people won't go to Harley Davidson parts. They'll go to external parts as well. Maurice, hello, how are you? I've got a 2020 bed sense, and one hates it and one loves it. There we go. Oh, so you've got a DP, you've got a GS, and you've got a 2020 bare bones. Cool. Joel, Harley needs to come out with a redesigned shovel head with kickstart, Acer navigation radios. Go get lost on your bike. That is the point. The thing is, if they did something like that, You know, would it be popular? Would it be just going back too far? I don't know. I don't know. I'm not sure Showerhead is. I don't know. I'm sure lots of people look at Showerhead and this nostalgia, but in terms of the practicality, especially of modern riding and modern riders, of as a daily rider, something you have to kick it over. I think those days are gone personally. But I mean, you know, who knows? Joel, buy an Evo. You'll be happy. You'll be as happy as heck. Best motor HD ever made. Simple and reliable. Well, again, I think if they're going to go back, Harley Davidson, this is, if they're going to go back and bring out an old school engine, then I think you've got to be looking at the Evo, haven't you? You know, or something like that. If you want to go back, if you want to, you know, that kind of thing. If you want to look at simplicity, if you want to look at something like that, you know, or make an engine that is of alike, of similar to that, but just make it all Euro 5 compliant, and you know that whatever you know, meets emissions, it meets you know, reliability, meets all that kind of. If you want to really come out with that, but again, you know, it's only opinion. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think they whilst the M8 isn't to everybody's liking, especially if you love the older bikes, I I think on the whole it's a much better package. But it's not without its problems. The Revolution Max engine is a much better package, but it's not going to be to everybody's liking. So I think, well, you know, could you resurrect an older engine? Maybe come out with a series of bikes with an older style engine, let's say, something that's not exactly an Evo or a twin cam, but maybe something similar. That would have, you know, and I kind of talked about this the other day, you know, one eye in the past, one eye in the future. Maybe have some kind of speciality bikes or speciality series that are not too complicated, that are not too, you know, over the top, that are not expensive, but you kind of, you know, you still getting people to buy the older style bikes. I think there's a market there for it. Personally, I think there's a market for it. Steve, I remember back when it was critical to have exactly the same amount of fork oil in each leg and preload the same, even pipes to balance each fork. Now it's a separate function pig piston. Yeah, and also it depends if you've got linked forks as well. If you've got forks which are oil-based, air-based, yeah, I'm not cracking. You know, sometimes it's way too much information to, you know, you kind of look at these things sometimes and you think, crikey, you end up going down a rabbit hole of all possible scenarios, and you think, crikey, you know, and I suppose this is why looking at a much simpler bike and a much simpler option is just better. It's just better. It's simple design, simple execution, simple maintenance, and but also simple understanding. It just makes it easier for us as riders to ride, to work on, to fix, to consider, and to speculate on, let's say. Because you look, there's no doubt, because if I had to compare, let's say this simple bike which I just, you know, resurrected, as it were, right? Oh, look, I could yes, whilst I was talking in videos about manuals and numbers and everything, do you know, in the end, it just did it by eye, just did it by feel, most of it. Yeah, I got figures for it in the end, but essentially, they're simple to work on, aren't they? You just think, well, okay, I'll just do that, take that, I'll take that, bish, bash, bosh, done. Yeah, air, fuel, yeah, carburetor, there's air filter, there's the engine, pistony, cylinder, yeah, that'll do, bolt here, bolt there. And it's mechanical. This is what I'm trying to say. It's mechanical. You can see it and you can feel it, as it were. So it's an easy thing. But all of a sudden, then you start coming into modern bikes and cars and trucks. It's difficult to keep on top of it. It's difficult to start working it out. And that's why I would say, if you look at a new bike, because we're talking about bikes, if you look at a new bike, sometimes, you know, you think why do you think you need to change that bike? Why do you think you need to modify it. You want to modify it because possibly you just want something to do. You want to modify it because you think, oh, you know, the designers, what were the designers thinking? Well, the designers are thinking so many other different things, of course, that you're not even thinking about. And one of those things is, you know, emissions compliance as well. But it's also about the kind of materials they're using, the structural integrity of all the engine as a whole, or the vehicle as a whole as well. So they're thinking about that, but you're thinking about one particular thing. So you think, I know better, or I'm going to improve this bike, right? It doesn't necessarily mean that you are going to improve it. You might be and how many times have people made performance modifications to their bike and have actually made it worse? And I bet you it happens a lot. It happens a lot. There we go. Sorry, Dave B. Sorry, I'm trying to keep up with the some of the messages here. It's actually a 48 special, but I still hate it. Oh, okay. I like that 48. Why do you hate it? What's so bad about it? What is it you hate? I'm like, I like the 48. Yeah, I don't know. Well, why do you? I mean, I think this about all the sports. So I think that for my physical frame, I think they're too small for me. But that's it. Here we go. Alf. 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 Yes. Okay. Mods are not to make the bike better. Let's say. In many cases, it's to make the bike their own, to make it unique. Even if the mod is not better, mods are going to be a thing regardless. Well, I'm not saying they're not going to be a thing at all. Yeah, I'm not sure if we're on the same wavelength here. And this seems to be a case in recent comments with you. I'm going to highlight this because if you come on here and you're going to start saying things as well, and also I acknowledge the comments you've been making recently on some of the videos, I'm going to make it. So I'm not going to say that they're not going to be a thing, because they will always be a thing. But people do put modifications on their bike to make them better. Okay, and to make it their own as well. You're absolutely right. But primarily, we're talking performance modifications here, not aesthetic modifications. There's a difference between modifications, right? A modification for aesthetic purposes, the way the bike looks, totally different. Okay, that's a totally subjective thing, because that is making it your own. But if you're talking about a performance modification, whether it's suspension, whether it's brakes, or whether it's engine related and drivetrain, the performance modification is to make it better. It's not to make it your own. It's to make it better in your mind. Yes, you're doing it in your own image, let's say, and you're doing it to your own style to make it your own. But fundamentally, you're doing it to make it better, because you've got warped thinking if you think you're going to make it your own, but it's going to make the bike worse. What I'm saying is that many people have the belief that they'll be making a performance change, performance upgrade to their bike, but they actually inadvertently make it worse than it was before, or they induce another problem on their bike. That's what I'm saying. There we go. Look at the 72 sports. They did well. I think they did. Yeah, yeah, you're right. I'm not sure how well they did over here in Europe, actually, but yeah, they did well. I do like those the Sportsters. I do. How long before we see a revamp in a touring bike? Again, I think that's coming. My gut feeling is the reason why they don't make these big changes in terms of suspension and chassis, which I've been calling for a long, long time on the Taurus, right? Because I've just got a sneaking feeling they are going to change it. They're going to change it. They're going to make a fundamental change to the chassis. Now, could it be? And I've got videos coming on about this. There's lots of content coming about of addressing all these issues, right? But could it be that you're going to get a touring chassis with the Revolution Max engine? Is that going to be the new touring bike? Is it going to be the M8 engined Taurus, but with a brand new chassis? Could be two options here. Well, it could be three or four options. Who knows? And in terms of power, in terms of making modifications, people are getting, well, they've been, actually, I wouldn't say recently, but they have. There's a notable couple of people of note who have been saying recently, Harley Davidson engines don't need more power now. People don't need to keep on adding more power. And I think this was what I was trying to get to on a previous comment I was making about this bike as well, that, and stock and making changes. There are people in the know, let's say, people in the know who work for motorcycle manufacturers, who work for, let's say, who are racers, road racers, track racers, performance racers, whatever. Then they look at a manufacturer and they say, you know, this is a bike, right? Here's a bike, and they'll speak to somebody and they'll say to somebody, oh, I'm going to change this part on this bike. And they look at them and they go, why are you changing that part in the bike? That bike is perfectly suitable for you, your riding capability. Why do you need to change it? And people can't answer. People, oh, well, I want to change the look. Okay, well, fine. Change the look is different. But why? Because that bike is more than enough for what you can get out of it. Okay. In 90%, 99%, well, maybe 95% of the cases of riders, can I outperform the bike, my riding style, or what I think? No, I can't. In most cases, I can't. I'm sure some people can, but if you're really honest with yourself, most people can't. You can make little tweaks here and there to change it to make it your own, as Mark was saying, and change the feel of it or change the comfort, yes, and the look, yes. But in terms of performance and everything like that, most people, with suspension, this is another big thing. People change suspension, right? And they change it and it ends up being worse. They don't get it right. They don't probably take it to a specialist to have it set up properly for you as an individual. That's another big thing. All right, here we go. Is it possible to bump start an M8, or would the bike just stop them? Perhaps you might fall over. Well, that's a good question, actually. Look, I think you can bump start any bike, but how successful you'd be, I'm not 100% sure on that, to be quite honest with you. Bump starting, I mean, look, give it a go. That's all I could say. I mean, I don't. It's a good question, actually. I don't know. Let me think about this. BCM, ECM. I don't think you could. I actually don't think you could. I don't think you could. Good question, though. Somebody needs to try it out. There's got to be somebody's thought about this. I hadn't really thought about it. Oh, sorry, wrong one. Where am I going? I've missed a few things here. Here we go. How long before we see a Revolution Max engine, Revolution Max in touring bike? Well, I think that's coming. In all fairness. Dave B, this is about your 48, right? Okay, it looks great. Mainly, it's the suspension and build quality. Suspension, yes. Build quality, I know, because a friend of mine had a 48 as well. Actually, a couple of friends had a 48. One of them was very much hacked off of the rust that was came very quickly on the spokes. He was saying it goes well, but it's bloody dangerous if you try and push it even a little. 1200, I think you've got in the 48, isn't it? I just bought a Z900 RS. It's totally brilliant. The 48 is up for sale. Oh, so yeah, nice bike. Yeah, very nice. Very old school look on it as well. And the RS has been updated as well, hasn't it? From the one previously, I believe. There's 1,000 bikes out there in your mode that has the exact mods you have. You are correct. We do it to make it better. Harley is famous putting less than opinion items on the bike. I would say so. There's a strategy here. Look, when they cottoned onto this many years ago, after they had their bikes, they were producing their bikes, then they realized there was a market for aftermarkets or modifications. Then they kind of jumped onto it. And this is about 15, 20 years after they were in business, let's say. And then they kind of changed their business model for that. There's no, we know this, right? This is, what happens. We make them better for sure. Yeah, or we try to make them better. Yeah, for sure. Here we go. Richard Maroney, Royal Enfield, it is all you need. Do you know what? I'm a big fan of Royal Enfield, no doubt. Big fan. There we go. Bump start an M8 1750 and high compression. Yeah, I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure myself, but there we go. Cheers. Nice one. Catch you next time. Yes. Cheers, Dave. Nice to see you. Or nice year. Thank you for joining and all that sort of stuff. But look, I mean, there's lots of things you could go on about any bike, couldn't you? And I always say this, there's always good. And in anything that I say about Harley Davidson or BMW or Triumph, there's always good. There's always good in any dealership, in any manufacturer. There's some great things, and people, the likes of Mark who came on before, and who've made comments. I get comments not just from him. I'm not going to single out him because there are other people who like to throw accusations at me or what I say. Because if you just take one video or a series of videos, you say, well, I'm only being negative or whatever, or you're being negative about a particular product or a particular company, and say, no, I'm not, because there's lots of things that are fantastic about Harley Davidson, about the Softails, and I think I've already talked about it already. About the Softail chassis, about the overall designs. In terms of, if I had to weigh up between Harley Davidson and Indian, I've made videos about this recently, I would lean towards it. Towards Harley Davidson in terms of overall design appearance. I think the Indian engines side profile, I think, are just glorious. I think they're fantastic. Love them, the way they look, right? But overall, I think the Harley Davidson is a better overall appearance. Performance-wise and setup-wise, I think Indian have got the edge, in terms of pre-Revolution Max, of course. But it's one of those things. Then you look at so there's always good points. There's always great things. There's always great things about any manufacturer. And Harley Davidson, there's lots of great things which I admire. There's lots of great things I've really learned in the last sort of 3 or 4 years that I've been heavily involved with them, and I really love and I really admire and I really wish. I think, I like that. I like that. But again, with lots of the things, there are things where I thought, oh Christ, why have you done that? Or why doesn't this work as well? Or why are we having to find a fix? Or what, so that, I could be a cheerleader channel for Harley Davidson. I could say, fantastic, this is what and there are channels out there like that, right? And, oh, brilliant, yeah, it's really good. You should buy this, it's fantastic. Yeah, go and spend $10,000 here, do that, and then put a 131 in. Oh, do this, do that. Yeah, I'm just gonna fly the flag for Harley Davidson all the time. There are people like that. That's no problem if that's what you're doing. But my channel is never like that. My channel is about, it's about seeing through the matrix, as it were. It's about the good and the bad. And, there's always good and there's always bad. And there's always good and bad in any other motorcycle manufacturer. And I'd always say that whilst I'm a Harley Davidson, I love my sport car. I love the soft out, and I love the Taurus. And I like all the bikes. And actually, in all fairness, that they've got, it might not necessarily be to my style. That doesn't mean that I totally discount any other bike or any other manufacturer. I don't. In fact, I look at all the bikes, or I try to, because there's so much information out there and so much. And I always look at these other bikes, and just like Richard just said, Royal Enfields. I think that they are some great bikes there. They look cool. They look cool as well. There we go. Some of the big sound systems blare so loud it's like a whole parade going down the road. Well, yeah, I mean, people love all that sort of loud thing. Do you think that Harley will eventually put water-cooled engines, especially in Tourer models? Well, just like the Revolution Max. I would imagine that. Well, the Taurus have an oil liquid cool, oil, and there's a liquid cooled version, isn't there? I'm just thinking. I just don't think the M8 is the future of the touring chassis. Something tells me that it's going Revolution Max all the way. And I would not be surprised. Again, I got videos about this. I would not be surprised. You're hearing it here first, folks. I would not be surprised if the Revolution Max engine was the next one, or they're delaying. They're delaying, or they're going to continue with the M8 in this current touring chassis, and they're going to keep on delaying it and delaying it and delaying it until they come out with a new engine with great touring applications. And I wouldn't be surprised if something like that is coming very, very soon. I would not be surprised. But anyway, listen, as I say, we could be here all day talking about the good points, the bad points about Harley Davidson, the way to, I think the way they've evolved Harley Davidson, they've incorporated some really, really cool features, and in some ways they've alienated the traditionalists, but in other ways they've embraced other riders, and they've evolved to become a more inclusive. When I say inclusive of the riding taste. And no doubt with the Softails of this generation, they've brought in riders from other brands, no doubt, because people saw that Harley Davidson have made bikes that really do ride really well in the bends, right? So that's a fantastic thing. And the styling has, been good, and, all that sort of stuff. So you look at that. And the way they've incorporated electronics, and the way that's come on, and the way that, so in many ways, again, good and bad. So there's been some really great developments, but there's always been some developments or some stuff that's still stuck in the past, as it were. The Revolution Max engine comes on, great, but then you have problems, and people's, up and down about that. So there's always good. There's good, the bad, and the ugly. There's always that. And I hope, and maybe my channel is that. It's the good, the bad, and the ugly of the motorcycle world. It's a balanced view. It's trying to give you, the views, the opinions, or the videos you don't have to agree with. Certainly don't. You might have a different opinion, okay, of it, but the opinion is of just bringing you that information, or a view, or some insight, or some latest suggestions, latest rumors, whatever like that, but so you don't have to agree with it, and certainly don't, but come up with a different argument for it. Yeah, absolutely. But it is about acknowledging that they Harley Davidson make mistakes, really big mistakes sometimes, and you kind of wonder where they're going, and if at worst, would they survive? And the changing fortunes of and what are the competition doing? And say, like Richard said, Royal Enfield, what are they doing? What are the Chinese brands? What are Triumph doing? KTM, BMW, what are the Japanese Big Four? What are they doing? How do they navigate these changing times? All that kind of stuff. So if you just look at the big motorcycle picture, as opposed to just looking at Harley Davidson, then you start comparing and contrasting, and you start saying, whoa, there's some lots of similarities with what other bikes do, or other manufacturers do, where you kind of scratch your head saying, why have you done that? Why have you done why? And there's other things that, lots of similarities. We think, well, yeah, it's exactly the same on that bike as that bike, yeah, or that brand do it exactly the same way. But there's so many differences, and you think, they do it in that way, that's possibly the best way for the future. They can produce bikes that are really, really cheap and of improving quality. Why can't Harley Davidson do it? Why are the Chinese now all of a sudden doing bikes that are much greater capacity, CC capacity? Why are they producing bikes or engines that is a direct clone, or an improvement, as they would say, on the Sportster engine? Why are they coming out with a bike that they want to come out with, a model that's like a street glide, like a touring bike? Why? Because people, other manufacturers, other areas around the world, they're changing, they're evolving as well. Not sure if you've done sissy bars. You're doing a small project on mine. Yeah, it's great. I mean, there's lots of ways to make sissy bars, and there's lots of ways to add sissy bars as well to your bike. There's lots of manufacturers out there. All I would say is sissy bars, depends on what bike you've got. Don't just necessarily look at Harley Davidson. Do your research on there, because and if you want to make it your own, if you want to do something different, and you don't have the skills yourself to make your own sissy bar in terms of welding and bending metal and all that sort of stuff, right? There are people out there, like blacksmiths out there, who make sissy bars. There are people out there who are on eBay or on Etsy or you know, whatever, some other selling platform, or selling art pieces, let's say, but they're sissy bars, right? And I said this when I first got the Sport Glide. Actually, look at this guy. And I just found him randomly, that, you know, he's making all these sissy bars. So there's loads of people out there who are like artisans, who you could go to and say, look, I've got this bike, it's got these dimensions, could you make a sissy bar? How good would it be? You know, that sort of stuff. There's loads of people out there. So, you know, just either make it your own if you can, of course, or you can go to a dealership, or you could go to another accessories. There's a couple in Germany, Motea, used to do a lot. I haven't looked there recently, but there's loads of other manufacturers on the world. Or go to somebody like a blacksmith or iron worker who can make this for you, you know, because there's lots of options out there. But as I say, you know, I again, in terms of sissy bars, I kind of look at the ones that Harley Davidson produce as well. I think, you know, they're all right. I mean, you know, they're okay. But, you know, I wouldn't say there's anything great about them, but, you know, there we go. Ed, goodbye. Well, I'm going to go as well. Thank you for joining. Thank you for joining. Hey, listen, everybody, thanks for joining. Listen, I hope you've enjoyed that live session as well. You know, the good, the bad, the ugly of, you know, Harley Davidson design, of motorcycle design, motorcycle features. Look, I'm sure we've all got them. We've all looked at our bikes and we thought, God, why have they done that? Why did they do that? Or we looked at it and thought, I love that feature. I love that feature. I still look at my bike and I look at it and I think, oh, yeah, hello. You know, I like that. I love that. I love that. Other people might look at it and think, oh, it's horrible. It's horrible. You know, it's the way it is, isn't it? But I always look at that bike and think, you know, I need a special tool for that, or I need to do that, or I need to, you know, oh, I'm glad I came up with my own little fixes for that, my own, or I know where the weaknesses are and where the strengths are. And that comes from riding a bike, owning a bike. You know if that bike works for you or what you can do to change it. And I think that's the crux of it, isn't it? Right, anyway. Thanks for joining. Have a great day, whatever you're doing, and or evening or night or morning, whatever it is. Enjoy the rest of your day. Lots of videos coming, of course. Thanks for all the support. Thanks for all the comments. Whether you agree with me or not, it doesn't make any difference. You know, I welcome all that. But just, you know, thanks for everything. The support, super chats, whatever, the super thanks. Yeah, I know if you want to. There's no. You don't have to, or you can go to the website, check out the website, revelatoralf.com. There's lots of stuff there. Put more rallies up there, put more hangout places up there for you to go and have a look at. There's more stuff going up. And, you know, it's one of those things with the website. I'll be constantly changing. I've added the projects page there as well, so you can have a look at what sort of projects or ideas I'm thinking about in the background. I say I haven't really developed that yet. I'll be adding more in time. But anyway, possibly some one-off photos or whatever will go on there as well. So kind of an idea of what's going on, or maybe some videos that will go specifically to that page, but we'll see. I haven't really decided yet. Anyway, hope you found that entertaining, at least something to discuss. But have a great day. I'll catch you on the next video. Short, been doing quite a few of those shorts recently, having a bit of fun with those, experimenting with those, and hopefully you can get the hidden messages in those, because they are hidden messages, but some people are getting them, other people aren't. But anyway, and maybe another live show coming very soon as well. But I'll catch you again. Ta-ra.